You're listening to the League of Legends podcast of strategy, innovation, and hosts with great beards. This is First Blood.
Hello and welcome back to First Blood, the League of Legends podcast. I'm Alec, aka Eat More Chicken, and I am joined once again by my fellow co-host, Will Kearney, aka Sinscar. Say hello, Will.
Man, it's good to be back.
It is good to be back, isn't it? We've been gone quite a long time here at First Blood. I know that you guys have been missing us terribly, weeping and gnashing your teeth at the very thought of missing out on all of the wonderful sounds of our voices as we bring you the latest news about League of Legends. But I promise we've had good reasons for not recording. Just lots of life issues coming up, and I have moved a couple times, and I have a child, and it's just all kinds of fun stuff has been going on now. But we are back, and we are ready to be podcasting once again here, and we want to talk about League of Legends, and what a time to be coming back, huh, Will? Because, I mean, this is the start of Season 4. It's getting ready to be rolling out here pretty shortly. Season 3 just ended. I am not happy with where I ended in my ranked play there for Season 3, but I understand, Will, that you made quite an accomplishment going into the end of Season 3 here.
Yeah, I made gold 5 this season by the skin of my teeth. It was good. I was glad to be able to make it. I'm definitely hoping to maybe even make plat next season. So,
congrats to you, man. Hopefully I will be joining you back up there in Gold League come Season 4. I don't know. I just don't think I played enough ranked in Season 3 to really get myself up there. But I'll be joining you soon, I'm sure of it. But you get that really, really pretty Elise skin, which I'm sure you're excited about. You've been playing a lot of Elise.
Yeah, Elise is a big part of the reason why I was able to get to gold in the first place. So it was nice to get that skin and kind of cap that time I spent playing the champion off with a pretty sweet skin. So
awesome. Yeah, I'm slightly jealous of that skin. Everybody knows I like my skins.
Yeah,
so.
it's ironic because I don't really like a lot of skins, but that the skin looks really good, and not everyone is going to have that skin, so it kind of adds a little bit more to the meaning.
Yeah, buddy. All right. Well, as I've been saying, I mean, we've been gone for quite a long time. I think the last time we recorded was back in like February, so it's been quite a long time here. And obviously, there's no way we're going to talk about everything that has happened since we've been gone because we will be here all night, and I need to go to sleep eventually. So we're going to basically wipe the slate clean and start anew here. We want to mostly talk about the Season 4 stuff that's going to be coming up because there are some really, really big changes that are going to be coming to League of Legends. Really exciting changes, really interesting changes, stuff that's really going to affect the flow of the game and really affect how it's played, not just at the normal level, but really at the competitive level as well. Really going to really clean up the game a little bit, I think, as far as game flow goes. So that's the major topic that we'll be discussing here tonight. Now, of course, we still do want to do our weekly champion spotlight. And this week we have a really special one because it's an 80 carry, and 80 carries are, of course, really close to my heart. Oh, I'm sorry, not 80 carries any longer. Marksmen are really, really close to my heart there. So we're going to be talking about Jinx, the loose cannon, a little bit later on there. And I'm sure everybody has their own thoughts about Jinx, but I have plenty of stuff I would like to talk about Jinx there, so we're going to run down that. But let's start off with some of these Season 4 changes, and I really actually want to start off, Will, in basically your backyard in the jungle, because there are some really major changes coming to the jungle. If you want to kick this off here, basically tell us what you think. First tell us what we're going to expect going into Season 4 with the jungle, and tell us what you think about that there.
There's so many changes, it's almost hard to pick a place to start, but I guess I'll start with the most significant thing, which is that they are adding, of course, a new camp to the jungle. It is the white camp, and it'll be over by blue buff on both sides. Just kind of there in the jungle lane. It's sort of a bizarre placement. It makes me think that maybe there's more map changes, because he's sort of awkwardly placed, in my opinion, but it's
just kind of wedged in there, isn't it?
Yeah, it's a single target camp, so that'll be phenomenal for a lot of the junglers who don't really have a great amount of early aggression, but who have really good single target clears. I personally think that we ought to see Warwick actually could potentially make a pretty big comeback in season 4, based on some of the other things that are coming. But just by virtue of being an amazing single target champion, he'll certainly benefit from this.
Yeah,
But
absolutely. The other interesting thing about a new camp there in the jungle is that it really allows those kind of farm-heavy junglers to kind of come back a little bit. Because, I mean, in Season 3, I mean, basically it was about these high-aggression junglers. You wanted to be ganking very often. You really didn't see junglers sticking around in their jungle too often. And especially in the very aggressive kind of Korean format that we took on in Season 3 with, in competitive play with the 2v1 lanes, and you just didn't see really the junglers spending a ton of time in their jungle. Do you think that's going to have an effect on it? I mean, with a new camp there, are you going to be more inclined to kind of farm your jungle more than gank, or...
Well, it'll certainly give you a better choice to make, which I think was the whole point of doing this. Now, keep in mind that there's about 6 other changes coming that also affect all the questions that you're asking, so I don't want to outright answer it until we've gone over everything. But I definitely think that having the ability to stay in the jungle and always have a camp up will certainly help certain junglers to become more viable. Like Warwick will probably be, in my opinion, the main one, because he has essentially a free kill at level 6, but his presence pre-6 is pretty poor, so he'll definitely want to stay in the jungle as long as possible.
That ult.
Yeah, that ult. If you can't kill someone with that, then just go play in some other game.
You don't deserve to be jungling if you can't kill somebody with Warwick ult at level 6.
But yeah, so there is the new camp. Okay, so the second thing, which sort of plays into the whole concept of choosing whether or not you want to be a high aggression ganker style or you want to be a farm style, is that the new Wriggles Lantern could, and also the other Spirit Stone items, are all getting changes. We'll probably talk about the Spirit Stone items in another podcast, because I really want to focus in on Wriggles Lantern this time.
Okay.
Because it's probably the most significant change. Wriggles Lantern now is going to have attack speed 25%. All these numbers, of course, could be changed around, but the big difference now is that Wriggles Lantern is now going to give 40% extra gold from monsters killed in the jungle.
That is huge. I mean, that is an unbelievable amount of gold that you would get then from those jungle monsters.
Right, especially if you have an extra jungle monster to kill, and the time that you spend killing that jungle monster gives you more time for the other camps to spawn, so potentially you can clear all the way through the jungle 3 times, get to 6, and then gank someone, and then just go right back to farming the jungle, and you'll have close to equivalent money that a top laner would have.
That just blows my mind. I guess it's just because that's so far removed from what we've been seeing lately with junglers. Because, I mean, like I was saying before, I mean, in order to get any amount of gold really on your jungler, you kind of had to, do a lane tax a bit when you would come in and gank. You'd have to take some of the farm, otherwise you would just fall behind. So, I mean, this is definitely going to make things very interesting for junglers in the future there, being able to get that 40% extra gold. I mean, that's insane.
Yeah. Now it's a trade-off, because the Wriggles Lantern itself has very little combat applicability. I mean, you still have the ward that you can place, which is, all well and good. But you're trading the ability to have a better gank for the ability to, build some better late game items. And really, it'll be good, I think, especially on certain junglers that have a fantastic late game, but maybe don't have a great early game presence due to lack of gap closers or, crowd control or what have you. So basically, people like Warwick, but who late game can potentially chew through a couple of people before going down. So yeah, the Wriggles Lantern change, I think, is going to be really interesting. I certainly think those numbers are going to be tinkered with. I remember Morello saying in a news release that they basically did not expect any of these changes to be remotely balanced.
Right.
With all the things that we're talking about now and the things that we will talk about over the course of the next couple of podcasts, I think all of it's very subject to change at this point.
Oh, you got to have to assume so, because I mean that's kind of the point of having a preseason here is they get to. I mean, Riot basically just gets to go crazy and do what they want, whatever they want to do, and then they can kind of tweak things down from there. So I expect those first couple weeks to be kind of insane, especially in the jungle, because that just seems like a lot of the biggest changes are happening there. I mean, there are some other changes that we'll get to here in a bit, but I mean, so far these jungle changes have just been absolutely mind blowing to me.
I mean, we had in the beginning of Season 3, if you remember back that far, we had League of Warmogs and League of Black Cleavers, so...
League of Black Cleavers,
So those types of things I'm sure will happen because these changes that they're making to League now are certainly much bigger even than the changes going into Season 3, so...
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I thought it was crazy when I went into a game and saw Sona with a Black Cleaver. We'll see what kind of craziness happens going into Season 4, to be sure. Other jungle changes that you can think of here, or I mean, one big one that I want to touch on real quick. I mean, I know it's not necessarily a jungle change per se, but he does live in the jungle. Let's talk about the dragon real quick, because the dragon is getting a bit of a change here to kind of go with a theme that Riot is kind of coming out with for the beginning of Season 4 here, and that's the effect of snowballing. Riot has been pretty clear with a lot of these changes that they don't like snowballing, or they don't like the heavy snowballing a lot of champions get and a lot of teams get when they acquire a lot of early advantages. They just snowball all the way up to the effect where the other team basically can't come back. Riot's trying to get rid of that, and one of the ways they're doing that is with the dragon. Will, could you talk about the dragon real quick? See how is that going to affect not just the jungle, but really just the flow of the game a bit with that large jungle minion?
They're trying to make the game flow a little bit smoother, especially in the early game where that early global gold can be absolutely devastating. And it's why you saw, in Season 3, before the tower changes, you saw those early tower pushes and, dragons would happen extremely early because that global gold, there's just nothing better than that. It is benefiting your whole team. It's one of the best things that you can do because when you're grouping up to take an objective, it's hard for someone to be out of position when your whole team is together.
Right, absolutely.
And you don't take that chance of 3 people coming out from the one thing you did not ward and all burning their ults and potentially summoner spells. And, I don't care who you are. If you get 3 ults and 2 summoner spells burned on you, you're going to go down.
Most likely. I mean, for a lot of times it takes only just 1 ult to go down. But 3, yeah, you're not getting back up.
So yeah, and the earlier that you take, since all of these, the tower and the dragon all have static gold, it really benefited you to take them early because it has much bigger of an impact if you take it, at 6 minutes versus 20 minutes. It's a huge difference. So now with the dragon, he's going to scale with his strength based on the champions and their levels, and also he's going to scale in the rewards that he gives. So potentially less money early on, and certainly will be worth more money as the game progresses.
And that's going to be interesting too, because I know that a lot of times you reach a point in a game where the dragon is no longer really needed anymore. I mean, obviously in the early game, he's a major objective right now because he gives you all that global gold. So, I mean, it might be interesting to see that if he does scale into the late game with the champions, maybe Dragon will be a little bit more hotly contested in the late game, too. I mean, we'll see. I mean, we don't know exactly the ratios or anything like that as to how much less he's going to be giving in the early game as opposed to the late game, but it would be cool to see maybe the Dragon being almost as hotly contested in the late game as the Baron. I don't know if it'll be that highly contested, but it'll be interesting to see. I'm excited.
Also, I think this will certainly help people in low elo to not throw their games as much because they have to get that dragon rather than pushing an inhibitor. I think it'll certainly soften that mistake and how problematic it is, because I can't tell you how many games I've seen people throw because they just had to get dragon rather than just going in and winning.
Or Baron, for that matter.
Right.
I don't know how many games, like you said, I've seen people just completely flow because they're like, no, before we go into the base, we have to get the Baron buff.
Right, which, Baron buff is something that you should, in my opinion, actively try to avoid getting unless you are absolutely sure that you will get it.
Yep, absolutely.
Which usually means 2 inhibitors down and super minions physically in the enemy's base.
All right, so moving on a little bit from the dragon here. Will, were there any more jungle changes you wanted to touch on real quick?
Yeah, there's one more minor jungle change, and it is that some of the actual bushes have been redesigned, so that's sort of interesting.
I was looking at that, and like they're saying now they've redesigned these bushes a bit to eliminate kind of those awkward spots there. I've honestly never noticed it, but maybe that's just because I don't spend a whole lot of time in bush. Have you noticed any of these weird, like, awkward spots there in the bushes before? Or?
Well, I think this is another sort of thing to cater maybe to lower elo people. And it's something that it's a little weird to me because no one was asking for this change. And
Right.
So it sort of surprised me when it came out. The bushes no longer really wrap around the little lip there on blue buffs on either side and also on red, which isn't really a huge deal. I think probably the biggest deal with the brush is how they changed the brush in top and bottom lane. Rather than having 2 long bushes with a little gap in between, you now have 3 bushes, 2 medium-sized ones, and then a little tiny bush in the middle, and then another medium-sized bush. So what this will do, I think, is this will make it a little bit harder to lane gank.
Oh, by far, absolutely. And not that lane ganking was really that big of an issue in the first place. It's, maybe in the higher elos it was a little bit easier to do because your lanes were a little bit more experienced. But I know playing in the lower elos like I've been, lane ganking wasn't really something that happened just because people were bad at it. But is it a problem thing? Do you think they're trying to cut down on lane ganking? Was it really that bad? Or
honestly, because the majority of the people who play this game are in either silver or bronze, in the tons of games that I played to get to gold, I think I got lane ganked maybe 4 times in
exactly
300 games. So it's something that I don't really understand why it's happening, but I can tell you that this will, in fact, lower the amount of successful lane ganks that happen.
I think it'll actually probably just eliminate it. Without having that much coverage anymore, I think it's just not even really a viable option. It'll be interesting because that third middle bush is going to be the most hotly contested over with vision-wise for wards and stuff like that, which we'll get to in a minute because Vision is getting a bit of an update as well. But I think it's pretty much going to eliminate the possibility of doing that lane bush gank. I just don't think it's going to work out anymore.
Yeah, it's certainly going to be harder, especially with the more linear junglers like Udyr and people who are just kind of like run at you style. But if you have a gap closer, I don't really think it's going to affect Lee Sin or Jarvan or any of the people who can pretty much just jump on you. But for those people who need that extra second to 2 seconds to get to you, it's really going to make it hard to lane gank with those type of junglers.
Now, considering the fact that Jarvan can jump on you from like 4 screens away, I don't think he's going to have any problem.
Yeah, and sometimes he can. I'm not sure if this is possible, but I'm pretty sure Jarvan can EQ from your side bush across the little mini bush to the other bush in one move, so he could potentially sneak his way in there without getting seen.
It looks like barely, maybe.
I don't play a lot of Jarvan, so I couldn't say for sure, but...
Well, I mean, you basically measure the screen by Jarvans, so I mean that's like...
But
that looks like about a Jarvan there. I think he could probably get there. But yeah, I don't know. I think lane ganking is going to be one of those things that the old timers get to sit on their rocking chairs and talk about, and it's just not gonna really exist anymore.
Well, we shall see.
Yeah, and I mean, obviously, probably everything that we're saying here is going to be completely false, and Riot is just laughing at us right now. But anyway, moving right along, was there anything else jungle-wise you wanted to touch on, or can we move on to maybe some of the vision changes here?
Yeah, let's move on to some vision changes.
Okay, so anybody that's been playing in maybe the higher elos or watching competitive play knows that vision has been kind of a problem recently. And the only reason why Riot has kind of acknowledged this as a problem is because the majority of Team Global Gold was spent on wards. I mean, you would see supports leaving their base with just basically all wards. I mean, support was just a walking ward bag. I mean, it was insane the amount of wards that were spread across the map, and not just the regular old green wards either. These are pink wards. I mean, the term pink ward battle has been coming out of Season 3 just because people keep throwing down pink wards to try to take Vision away from each other. I mean, Vision has just exploded in Season 3. And so I think Riot wants to try to kind of mitigate that a little bit. So they're making some pretty serious changes here to Vision, not just wards, but Vision in general. Will, do you want to touch on a couple of these real quick?
Yes. Probably the biggest change is that, like you mentioned, the pink wards... Now each player will have a maximum of one pink ward that they can place, and that pink ward is now visible to the enemy team and has 5 HP. So that is a massive change because you're no longer going to get into almost a vision snowball effect where the enemy team gets so far ahead that they can pink every single bush and completely take over the vision fight. Now the vision wards are going to be contestable, and you'll be able to go around and potentially fight for some of the vision in your own jungle if you're behind, rather than being completely unable to counterplay based on just how much money the enemy team has and how little you have.
Right, and I mean, pink wards are still going to reveal your enemy's stealth wards. So, I mean, it's not like they're not going to reveal the enemy's wards. They're still going to do that. It's just now the enemy is going to be able to see your pink wards at all times. They're not going to be stealthed anymore.
So now, rather than supports getting mobility boots and getting their sightstone and then just buying lots of pink wards and just running around and pinking everything. Now I think that the pink wards are going to be a much more strategic, sort of a flashpoint that could, draw a team fight.
Oh, sure.
So I think that's something that's definitely smart, and actually I think this will certainly help pro play a lot because it'll make for some exciting moments.
Yeah, it's definitely going to make it's going to make the Vision War in general be a little bit more hotly contested. Because I mean, before it was like, oh, well, he placed a pink ward here. We know there's a pink ward here. Go get our own pink ward, and we're just going to drop that here. We're going to push them back a little bit. We'll destroy their ward, and in about 2 minutes, they'll do the same thing to us. So, I mean, it just wasn't really that big of a deal, but I think this is going to make it a bigger deal now. It's like, if they're going to drop a pink ward, they mean serious business. They want to clean out those wards. They're going to do their best to protect their pink ward. It's going to be interesting. I'm interested in this a lot.
Right, and at the higher elos, I think people understand that not just the supports and the junglers need to ward in order for a game to be won. But now that you physically cannot expect the jungler and the support to ward everything. I think this is really going to help to teach people at lower elos that if you have 75 gold, you buy a ward. Like, there's no reason not to.
And now the interesting thing about this is that you can still carry more than one pink ward. You just can't have more than one on the map at once per player.
Right.
So, I mean, if it's going to basically, correct me if I'm wrong, but from what I was understanding from the notes and everything else, it's going to basically function kind of like the Sightstone does now, where, you know, you can place a maximum of 3 wards down, and then if you place the 4th, the first one you placed will vanish. And that's kind of the way this is going to work too. So you can still carry, you know, if you really want to fill up your inventory with pink wards, you can totally do that. They're not going to stop you from doing that, but you can only have one on the map at once.
I'd imagine that rather than, you know, going back to base and buying, you know, 3 to 4 pink wards, we'll probably see, you know, supports get 2,
Yeah, I'd say 2.
And then everyone else will probably just get 1 if they can.
If that, I mean, I'd say supports will probably stick with 2. You might see the jungler pick up 1. I don't know if you'll see other people buying pink wards. I mean, definitely regular wards still, but I don't know if pink wards are going to be as big of a priority anymore.
It's really tough to say. I mean, it's such a huge change that I honestly every speculation that I have is basically baseless conjecture at this point.
Yeah, I mean, we'll definitely see how it actually plays out once we get into the preseason a bit deeper here. The other thing is that pink wards are not the only wards that are getting a bit of an overhaul here. Even your normal green wards are getting a bit of a change in that now you can only have 3 at a time on the map. So, I mean, it's going to be basically the Sightstone rule basically is going to apply to all wards, not just their own. So even green wards, they're limiting the amount of those you can place on the map. So that's going to be interesting. I guess I'm even a little slightly confused as to why they're doing it this way with the green wards as well as the pink ones, but they're really wanting to kind of I don't know if they're trying to limit the Vision War or what they're trying to do with Vision here, but so doing that with not just your normal pink wards, but with the green wards as well.
This is almost like I know that one of the things that they're certainly trying to do is they're trying to make the support role a more desirable role, and one of the ways to do that, in addition to simply buffing the amount of gold that supports get, if you were only to do that and supports, okay, we'll just say, hey, we'll give supports more gold. Well, if that change just exists by itself in a vacuum, then they're just going to buy more wards with it. We've basically established an artificial cap on how much, you know, you can be responsible for ward-wise, because anything less than that would just result in, okay, you know, supports have 30% more gold. Well, sweet, now we can have 30% more wards. So, you know, we've shifted some of the cost. It's almost like a sort of like ward communism. But, I mean, if you can place 3 stealth wards and a pink ward, then that's a maximum of 20 wards on the map for a team at a time, which is way more than you really ever would need.
Yeah, I mean, even with a support role, I mean, I've played a lot of support here now, and I mean, from when I'm placing, I mean, for the most part, you're not going to have more than 3 or 4 green wards on the map at once anyway. So I guess this won't really affect green wards all that much unless you're just, you know, throwing all of your wards out of your inventory at the end of the game. But yeah, so that's interesting that they're doing that with green wards as well as pink. But you were mentioning some changes that I want to get into now, Will, which is the change to the support role, because this is really tickling my fancy a little bit, because I don't know about, well, I know that all of the rest of you hate playing support, which, I mean, there is no other position that you get in the queue and everybody's like, oh, I'll play anything except support. You know,
Yeah.
It's just like, it's one of those things that you see in solo queue all the time. Nobody wants to play support because they think it's boring. Because you basically are just a walking ward bag that, you know, can sometimes buy an aura item. And, you know, maybe if you're lucky, you get jumped on by everybody else on the enemy team and you get to die first so the rest of your team lives and wins the game. So, you know, they're really trying to make support into a role that people will actually get into queue and maybe fight over. No, I want to support. So, first thing they're doing is they're actually changing a little bit of the itemization with supports, which I am super excited about, because that means that gold for 10 items are coming back again. We have couple new gold per 10 items here. That first of all, you have the Spell Thief's Edge, which is going to give you plus 10 ability power, plus 3 mana regain, and plus 2 gold per 10 seconds. So 2 gold per 10. And it also has a unique passive where basic attacks against enemy champions grant 4 gold up to once every 10 seconds. So it's basically the pickpocket mastery that we had here in Season 3 is actually going to be on an item now. So that's going to be a little bit interesting. And that actually upgrades into the Frost Queen's Claim, which gives you 50 ability power, 10 mana regain per 5 seconds, and 4 gold per 10. So, and then you still get the passive pickpocket ability. And then it also comes with an active, which chills target enemy champion and all nearby enemies, dealing 50 magic damage and reducing move speed by 50% for 2 seconds. So basically an area of effect slow that you're going to get out of this item if you upgrade that Spell Thief's Edge into a Frost Queen's Claim. So interesting there. Another one of the items you get there is the Ancient Coin, which Ancient Coin gives you plus 5 health regain for 5 seconds and plus 3 mana regain for 5 seconds. And it gives you a unique passive that says being near a minion death without dealing the killing blow grants 2 gold. So that's interesting because now with the support, I know the biggest thing that you couldn't get gold because your AD carry was the one who had to get the last hits and get the gold so that they could get the items. Now you want your AD carry to get the last hit so that way you get bonus gold. So that's kind of cool there. And that upgrades into the Talisman of Ascension. The Talisman of Ascension gives you plus 20% cooldown reduction, plus 5 health regain, plus 15 mana regain, plus 2 gold per 10. And it also has that same passive, which is the being near the minion death that will grant 4 gold, and then a active which grants nearby allies plus 40% movement speed for 30 seconds. So like a mini Shurelia's. I actually want to stop right here for a minute because I think this item is going to really kind of revolutionize sports a bit. Will, I know that you've been playing a little bit of support recently, having a little bit of fun with a support Elise build. How does something like this really help the support role?
Certainly this will help people to find support as a more desirable role, which I think will make for better games because you never want a game design in which one person is always the odd man out.
Right.
I don't think people are generally going to be mad if they can't get support and they have to. Oh, I have to play top now. Most people aren't ever going to feel that way. So if we can create a scenario in which I don't know if we'll ever have people fighting to be support in mass, but if we can make it something where people will stop saying I will do anything but support. That'll make for better games because the quality of the players that will be playing support now will be higher, and that'll make for less snowbally games because we won't have I don't play support so I fed and now the AD carry is fed and it snowballs and it affects lanes that literally had no chance to have any impact on what's going on in that bottom lane. So it'll really honestly I think help the overall flow of the game, just because you really want people playing what they're good at, because that makes for a good game that doesn't snowball and it can be won because the team made a good decision rather than one lane feeding and the game just going completely to hell because of that.
Right, exactly. And I mean specifically this item in general though, the Ancient Coin, this one that's going to give you gold for your AD carry doing basically their job. I mean I think that's really gonna make support an interesting role to play because now you're finally gonna have gold to spend. I mean that was probably the thing that made support the least appealing because while you got to do some pretty cool stuff with their crowd control and everything like that, you just didn't get to buy any items. You went back to base. It's like, well, I can't afford anything, so I guess I'll just buy all these wards. And I mean, so this will be interesting because basically you're being rewarded for the AD carry doing what he was supposed to do in the first place anyway, which is last hit minions.
Right.
So I think that's going to be really cool. I'm really excited about that item, the Ancient Coin. So I'm really interested to see where that one goes. We do have one other new support item, and this one's kind of weird, and that's kind of why I wanted to separate it from the rest, because, Will, I wanted to get your opinion specifically on this item, and that's the Relic Shield. When it starts out, it's called Relic Shield. It gives you plus 50 health and plus 6 health regain per 5 seconds. It has a unique passive called Spoils of War, where your basic attacks will execute minions below 200 health. Killing a minion heals the nearest allied champion for 2% of their maximum health and grants them kill plus 5 gold. I mean, I don't really know what to think about this. I mean, what do you think about this item here?
I mean, I think they're trying to, well, since it has that heal, I think it'll certainly get built into those sort of harassy type support lanes. Thinking mainly Nami and Sona. You'll build that against those people so that you don't get harassed to death. But it's sort of the reverse of what they were doing with AD carries, giving the support the ability to last hit and give a benefit to their carry.
Yeah, not just last hit, but last hit really effectively. Because, I mean, that's any minion below 200 health is going to just immediately die from your basic attacks, regardless of how much damage your basic attack does.
Yeah,
I mean that's like having almost a miniature smite attached to each one of your basic attacks here. That's kind of a big deal, if you ask me.
Also, it's an indirect nerf to promote. Not that anyone was ever getting that summoner spell, but...
Did anyone ever use that ever?
I think I saw it once in my 300 or 400 games.
Was it on a Heimerdinger?
I think it actually was on a Heimerdinger. And the sad part is it actually worked pretty well for what he was trying to do, so we lost that game.
It's Heimerdinger. But the Relic Shield does upgrade. You can upgrade it into the Face of the Mountain, which this gives you 375 health, 10% cooldown reduction, 25 health regain per 5 seconds. You still get your Spoils of War passive, and then you also get an active called Deadly Phalanx, which consumes 20% of your current health to shield a target ally for 10% of your maximum health for 4 seconds. After that 4 seconds, the target explodes, dealing 10% of your maximum health as magic damage in an area. So basically you have a Scion Shield.
Pretty much.
Basic concept of Scion's Shield that you get to throw on an allied champion there. And when the timer runs out, it blows up and deals some magic damage. So that's kind of cool. I like that.
Yeah, sure. Why not?
Yeah, why not? Let's have another shielding effect to make Janna worth playing. So those are the new support items. I'm really excited about the Ancient Coin, the Swell Thief's Edge. I could take or leave, and this newest item, the Relic Shield. I feel like I'm going to try to abuse the crap out of it, but I just don't know. I'm the most confused about the Relic Shield there. We'll see how that one pans out. The other thing they're doing to the support role is that they're making some champion-specific changes, specifically with your normal support faces like Lulu, Sona, Nami, Janna, Taric, and Soraka. They're making it so that their AP scales a little bit better. Like, for example, Janna's Zephyr ability. Zephyr's AP scaling is now going to increase bonus movement or speed and makes the slow more effective. So basically, it's going to be doing what you would think their abilities would have done in the first place, is scale off AP. So if you build a lot of AP on Janna, her Zephyr ability is going to be better. Which, I mean, logically makes a whole lot of sense. And I'm glad they're finally getting around to doing stuff like this. But it's definitely going to make... it's going to make all this extra gold you're going to be getting on your support now, you're going to want to buy AP items, so that way all of your utility gets better. So I'm excited about that, I really am. It's a new season, man. New seasons are exciting. I just get really excited about this, and especially when it's stuff that's going on in the bot lane. because the bot lane is so close to my heart there, and I love my supports. I always am so grateful for the people that want to play support, and I'm so hateful when I have to play support. But, but hopefully this will make it so that I'm less hateful of having to play support.
You're what's wrong with this game. I can tell that about you.
I am not what's wrong with this game. I am the least of toxic players.
I would like to actually see. I'd be very interested if this statistic was out there. The percentage of games that are won based on the variable of someone like choosing to be support versus someone being forced to play support.
You know, I'd love to see that stat too. I don't know if it does exist, and I don't know if it's even like a viable one, because I'll just use a game I was playing today, for example. We got in there, and the top guy actually was like, nobody pick support. I'm playing support. I love playing support. I'm going to play support. We're like, great. Okay, he's got support. We'll just fill in all of our roles that we want to play there. We got a guy who wants to play support, and everybody was just praising the crap out of this guy in the Champions League. And then he locked in Ahri.
Huh.
And we were all like, what? He's like, support Ahri. It's the best. We got slaughtered.
It's pretty bad.
So I just don't know. But I mean, I'm sure there are people out there who love to play support and just decide they're going to play bad support champions. But anyway, I'm not bitter about that loss at all. Definitely not. Okay, so moving right along a bit from supports here, I want to talk a little bit more about something we touched on earlier, which is kind of the game flow changes that are going to be coming about. In particular, the stuff that's going to make snowballing less likely to happen. Or if it does happen, it's not going to have as major of an effect on the game. Because we all know that horrible feeling of watching that Tryndamere completely snowball way out of reach, or watching that Akali get fed in mid, or watching that Vayne take early kills and knowing that you're never going to kill her in the late game, and just giving up at 20. And I think Riot really wants to change the way the game flows from the early game into the mid game, into the late game with snowballing. And a few ways they're doing that. I mean, we touched on the dragon change that's going to make it a little bit harder to snowball off that. But they're also making a major change to turrets. And Will, can you tell us what they're doing with the turrets here?
Yes. They are making it to where the turrets are going to give more gold to the person who last hits them, and less gold, at least at the tier 1 turrets, to everyone else. I believe it's 75 gold now. Global gold for the tier 1, and I believe it's, I want to say 200 for the person who kills it.
Mm-hmm, that is true. It used to be just a straight flat global 150 to everybody. Now it's going to be everybody gets 75, and the guy who kills it gets 200. And I think that's awesome personally, because I mean that's really going to kind of cut back on this meta that we've been seeing of these, the 2v1 lane that's going to be pushing down that turret as quickly as they possibly can in order to get that global gold advantage. This is going to have a major impact on high elo competitive scene, because I mean you really didn't see in low elo, you didn't see the 2v1 lanes that you see in high elo and competitive play, but I really think that's going to kind of put the brakes on that whole strategy.
I don't know if it's going to completely erase it, but yeah, it'll certainly make a difference.
It makes it less attractive, doesn't it? Because
yeah.
I mean, the whole idea was like you want to push, because I mean, if you remember, kind of back in I guess it was even back at the end of the spring split or the beginning of the summer split in LCS, where you had the 5-minute tower push. I mean, the first tower would be gone within the first 3 minutes of the game. And, I mean, that was basically what they strove for, was that the fastest tower push they could possibly get. That's why the 2v1 lane kind of came about. I would kind of expect with these turret changes to maybe see, maybe we'll go back to actually seeing AD carry support versus AD carry support instead of these 2v1 lanes. I don't know. But I would expect these turret changes to have a major effect here. That's I'm throwing that prediction on the table right now.
Oh yeah, no, I definitely agree it'll have a major effect. I don't think it will completely erase the possibility of doing a 2v1 lane, but we'll see.
Yeah, I mean, there are probably still some times where you're going to want to do a 2v1 just to shut down whatever whoever is the one, that poor one guy is just going to get shut down. But, yeah, I don't know. But I think it's going to really, really kind of slice that meta up a bit. The other big kind of objective change that they're making is with inhibitors. So destroying an inhibitor, if you remember now, if you blow up an inhibitor now, the inhibitor would buff all of the minions on your side. So if you blew up an enemy inhibitor, every one of your minions gets a giant buff, and it just makes it really, really, really hard for the enemy team to come back. If you lose an inhibitor, basically you're really gimped at that point. They're trying to change that here, and if you don't mind telling us exactly what they're doing with inhibitors to change that.
Yeah. Pretty much the change that's being made is they are going to change it to where an inhibitor is no longer going to buff every single minion that ever spawns on the map for you.
Oh, thank God.
So losing one inhibitor is going to cause that lane to push, but the other lanes, and of course you'll still have the super minions, but it's not going to buff all of the normal minions like it does anymore.
And this is going to make it a whole lot easier to maybe make those come from behind comebacks, because I mean, if they blew up your inhibitor, it's like, okay, well, before we make any kind of pushback on this, we have to get an ace in our base, and then push out all three of our lanes first. Oh, and then we can go ahead and try to push up as fast as we possibly can. So, I mean, I think that's going to make it a little bit easier now to not be pressured on all sides necessarily when one of your inhibs goes down.
Yeah, I mean, it's going to make it possible to still play offensively if you're down an inhibitor.
Right. Yeah. So that's going to be cool there. I'm really excited because I mean, I hate to surrender. I just don't do it now. I mean, even if we're like so far behind that it's obvious we're not going to come back, I just don't even surrender. I don't believe in it. It's against my religion. So I'm just not going to do it. So this will at least validate me a little bit, vindicate me a little bit on that. Just being like, no, we can still come back. Don't do it. Don't quit on me.
Yeah. I usually don't surrender unless the team atmosphere is excessively toxic.
Right.
Because at that point, I don't even really care about winning the game. I just want to get away from aggravating people.
Oh, I hear you. Definitely a problem in the community, to be sure. Let's see. We can touch on death timers real quick. I mean, that's pretty short and sweet. Basically, early on, death timers, they felt were just way too harsh. So now your death timers in the early game are actually going to be shaved a little bit to try to help reduce some early lane snowballing. So, I mean, you won't be gone from your lane as long, which will be interesting to see how that pans out. But not much to say with that. Death timers are just going to be a little bit shorter, at least in the early game. Bounties are getting a change a little bit, so you don't get... I mean, first blood isn't going to matter quite as much now. I mean, this podcast is going to matter. But actually getting first blood is not going to cause you to snowball quite as hard as it used to. So the benefit for getting those early kills is going to be cut back a little bit. And now they're actually going to start adding some bounties and rewards for assists in the sense of having like assist streaks and stuff like that, which is really going to be really cool. Because I can't tell you how frustrating it is as an AD carry to, maybe not get the last hit on quite a few champions and really lose out on a lot of chances to really get gold there because I'm getting all assists and not really kills. But so that's going to be interesting to see what kind of rewards they're going to be giving out for assists and having assist streaks. That's going to be cool.
Yep, and another general nerf buff to supports.
Yep, general. Buff to supports, buff to junglers. They seem to get the most assists. Start timers are going to get changed a little bit. We don't know exactly what that's going to look like yet. I think from the last I've heard is that minions are actually going to start spawning at a minute. I don't think we have a true confirmation on that, so I don't want to I don't want to say that's definitely the case. Have you heard, Will? Is that definitely the case that minions are going to be spawning at a minute? Or
I've heard it's something that they are tinkering with. That's I think the phraseology that I read. I believe a lot of the numbers and a lot of these things are going to change. Personally, as far as the minute timer for minions to spawn, that's one of those things that no one was really asking for, and so it sort of makes, I think, the pro scene a little bit more boring because those level 1 invades and the positioning and all the things that could happen between 60 seconds and 120 seconds in were pretty exciting and pretty interesting. So kind of hoping that they revert this, to be honest with you.
yeah, and I don't know if it's going to stick around or not, but one interesting thing it is going to make, especially when you're talking about early invades, it's going to make that decision a little bit harder. Because, I mean, to be perfectly honest, with all the changes that they're making with gold and vision and snowballing anyway, you may not lose out on all that much, depending on, when they actually make jungle timers. You may still be able to have the opportunity to do an invade. It just may be more of a decision now. It's like, do we go for that invade and risk losing out on some of these creep skills? Or do we just, stick to our lanes and actually risk the enemy getting in an uncontested gank on us? I mean, an uncontested invade on us. So I think it's actually going to make the choice a little harder, and it might make the strategy a little bit more interesting. Because, I mean, if you think about it in pro scene right now, you do an invade. I mean, that's just what you do. Because there's nothing else to do on the map. So you invade in, you put down an early ward, and that's all you do, and then you wait for your minions to spawn.
Right.
So I think that's going to make the choice a little bit harder now, and we might see some strategy really built around that early first choice. Are we invading, or are we going for the creep kills? So we'll see. I mean, that's kind of just going to be the overarching thing we're going to say after all of this is we'll see. But yeah, I'm not a huge fan of the spawn time changes, but we'll see. We'll see how it goes. Last thing, I mean, obviously this is not the last thing, but I think it's the last thing we're going to touch on because it's the last major change here. They're adding a trinket system into the game, and this is going to be pretty cool. I'm pretty excited about a trinket system here. Will you explain to us what the trinket system is?
Right. Okay. So trinkets are probably one of the ways that they're helping to sort of more equally distribute a lot of the warding and just general vision responsibility. So everyone's going to have the ability to get a free trinket. It is an extra slot, so really you can honestly kind of think of this as almost like a third summoner spell, except that you'll be able to kind of change them around based on your needs. But I'd imagine most people probably stick with what they eventually buy into. But you do start with a free trinket off the bat at level 1. So the trinkets there is one that just lays a stealth ward, and there is one that gives you vision of invisible units in the area for a little bit. So that will reveal stealth wards. It'll reveal things like Teemo shrooms. What other invisible nasties are out there?
Shaco boxes?
Yeah, Shaco boxes. It will not reveal invisible Shakos or Eves or anything like that. It is literally just traps and wards. So it'll do that. And then the third item is almost like a little mini clairvoyance, which makes me think that maybe they will remove that as a summoner spell, considering they're moving the functionality over to the trinket. But we'll see about that. So yeah, you have three trinkets.
I don't know if they'll actually get rid of the summoner spell, but I mean, it'll definitely make it. I mean, it's kind of rare to see anybody playing with clairvoyance now, anyway. But I mean, which is funny because you would think that's an effect that a lot of people would want to have, and I think that's probably why they're putting it on a trinket here. But I don't know if they'll necessarily get rid of it, but it's definitely going to make it so that at least everybody has a shot at being able to use it. Because it's one of those summoner spells that, you like, oh, that's a really cool effect, I want to take that, but then where would I have my flash and my ignite? So it's kind of just making that choice a little bit easier for you. It's like, oh, you can have your cake and eat it too, it's great.
Right.
I can see all the things, and I can still set your face on fire and teleport behind that wall.
Exactly. Now that the trinket clairvoyance is not like a global vision cast. It has a range, so it's not exactly like clairvoyance is.
Right, exactly. It's got a range, and it's got a much smaller area of effect there. The cool thing with these trinkets, though, is that once you hit level 9, you have the option of going ahead and upgrading your trinket, or your trinket will then upgrade at level 9, and you get a larger version of whatever trinket it is that you chose. But then if you decide, hey, I don't want this ward trinket anymore, I'm going to sell that, and I'm going to pick up the clairvoyance trinket, the greater orb, you don't have to start over again, which is very nice. Once you hit level 9, all of the trinkets will be upgraded, and you just get to jump right into the upgraded version.
Right.
And then from there, there's actually a third tier to those trinkets that you can purchase for no cost, which just greatly enhances whatever effect you had on the field to begin with in the first place. But basically, I think this is cool, because it's like you said, it's almost adding a third summoner spell to our repertoire here. Just more weapons to play with.
Yep.
I like it.
Yep, definitely gives you a sort of another layer of strategy, and certainly another huge decision to make for your gameplay style.
Well, I think it's really just going to come down to the ward trinket and the clairvoyance trinket, though. The one that reveals traps and stuff, I don't really foresee that one making a huge splash. I mean, Hextech Sweeper was an item back in the day. If you remember that item wheel, it did basically the same thing as this, and it just really wasn't that big of a deal. But I mean, maybe if with these changes, Teemo suddenly becomes a god, then everybody's going to want to be able to see them shrooms. So,
well, I can say definitely as a jungler, the most appealing item or appealing trinket to me is actually this sweeper.
Really?
Because it gives me a little bit of a mini Oracles effect, and being able to take out an early ward to set up a gank can be pretty helpful.
That's true, and I mean, once you get the greater, I mean, being able to activate it there to disable traps, that's kind of nice too.
So I think that'll make certainly bot lane a little bit more dangerous because a lot of them really do rely on the wards to be able to do things.
I know I do.
So being able to take out those wards for your AD carry will certainly help sort of the psychological state of the lane, because you can bully and you can play much more aggressively if you know that the enemy jungler has no wards up and they're not going to really, most likely, heavily commit to any fight.
Most likely. There are still some people that probably will, but
I mean, some people just don't give two craps about it, and they'll flash at you and fight you, but
they're what we like to call bad.
Right. They're the people with like 8 or 9 average deaths per game.
Fun times. Well, I mean, that's basically the biggest changes that are going to be coming with Season 4. Like I said, I mean, even though this is all up on Riot's homepage, and they'll be like, yes, this is what we're doing, all of this is obviously subject to change as it comes out in the preseason, as Riot realizes that they've broken certain aspects of the game and try desperately to fix them. And it's going to be, absolute mayhem for the first couple weeks, I feel like, but it's going to be a blast. I always love the release of a new season. Any other information you guys want to look at, like I said, all of it is available there at the League of Legends homepage, where you can take a look at all the changes that they're making, and you can wildly speculate on how good Heimerdinger is going to be in Season 4.
Also, can't believe we didn't say this. We kind of overlooked it because it's also quite huge, but Oracles is being removed from the game.
Yes, it is. And I mean, I guess that's kind of we didn't really touch on all the things that are getting actually removed from the game, because Riot really hasn't said quite all the things that might be removed from the game, but Oracles is a big one. Just because and I guess they're removing it just because it really does play into that whole vision war thing that Riot is probably trying to get rid of a little bit with these vision changes. I think it's a good thing, personally.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
And it really is going to make that, that trinket then is going to become a lot more, probably going to, I mean, the people that would want an Oracles in the late game anyway will probably just go ahead and pick up that trinket because it basically works like an Oracles that you just don't have to buy, which is kind of nice. But, yeah, I think it's going to be a good thing. I personally hate Oracles Elixir, but we'll see.
It will be gone in this season. It looks like they are pretty adamant, given what I read about removing this. It is a very binary, if you have it, you win. If you don't have it, you lose.
Well, it's just one of those items that just clearly showed which team was ahead.
Right.
It's like you're not going to spend the gold on something like that unless it's like, I just don't even care anymore. I'm going to buy this because I just have all the gold that I need, and I'm just going to start killing other people's wards.
Sure.
But yeah, I mean, it's like whatever team bought Oracles first was just obviously the team that was way ahead.
Yeah, it was certainly a win more option. It definitely sealed games. Especially if you had an Oracles at 15 or 20 minutes right there in the mid game, when it's clearly meant to be sort of a late game item, it made games just impossible to win because you could not make a play because you had no vision, and that's just not that's not fun to have a game where you can't do anything.
Right, or you can do something, but it'll most likely result in your death.
Yeah,
and nobody wants to be gray screened for 45 minutes. So it's just, I'm happy with that. I think that's a good move on Riot's part. I think with a lot of these changes, they're really identifying a lot of problems that have been going on in the game, and they're really going to be doing a lot of stuff to fix those problems. And I think I applaud Riot for these changes. So yeah, those are the Season 4 changes. I want to let's jump over to something else here, Will. Let's talk about Champion Spotlight. So, this is one of our regular segments that we always do here on First Blood. We always talk about a champion. We give you a rundown of the abilities and how they work and how the champion functions. And typically, back in when we were doing this originally, we were getting almost a new champion a week there. But let's talk about the newest champion here on League of Legends, Will. Let's talk about Jinx, the loose cannon. Now, obviously, since we haven't podcasted in a while, we're a little behind the ball on this because Jinx has been out for a little while, and she's already been, obscenely OP, and then nerfed a bit to bring her and reel her back in quite a bit. But I freaking love this champion. Something about Jinx just makes me very, very, very happy. I mean, as a guy who mains 80 carries, Jinx is just everything that I want in an 80 carry. She's got insane attack speed, she has good range, she's got a slow, she's got a root, and she's got a global ultimate that deals area of effect damage. Bah! I mean, it just basically throws everything I want into a champion.
Yep, it's she was pretty much 100% pick ban until she got her nerfs.
Nerfs. We can use nerfs kind of loosely here. Because, they were nerfs, they brought her back, they reined her back into so that she was on par with all of the other 80 carries. But, she's still an incredibly strong champion in my opinion, or maybe it's just me, because I just like her a lot. But I think she's still incredibly strong. Let's go over her abilities real quick. First of all, we have her passive, which is Get Excited. Jinx receives a massive increase to movement speed whenever she kills or destroys an enemy champion or tower. So anytime that you get a kill on somebody, or if you destroy a tower, you get this giant buff to your movement speed. And that is a really cool passive in my opinion.
Oh yeah, it gives her the ability to really clean up. I mean, there's just no end to what this passive does. It gives her the ability to clean up, gives her the ability to execute someone and then get out and let the rest of her team clean up if she's getting focused too hard or she's too low. Her her ability to split push is really, really strong with this because, her disengage after she takes a tower down is pretty strong. So those scenarios where you have to decide if it's okay to die in order to take the tower with you, well, Jinx most of the time can do that and still survive thanks to it is 175% movement speed, so that is an incredibly high amount of movement speed.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And I mean, one of my favorite things to do with Jinx personally is tower dive with her. Because, I mean, it's like you said, I mean, you get somebody low enough, they go under their tower, and it used to be, I mean, with a lot of other AD carries, you don't really want to dive because you go in there, you get the kill, and then you just die to the turret anyway. With Jinx, I run in there, I snag the kill, and then I get out. And, I mean, I maybe take one, maybe two turret shots if I'm slow. But it's really an impressive ability for being able to just jump in, clean up, and jump out. It's fantastic. Alright, so we're going to move on here to her Q here. This is Switcheroo, which Switcheroo modifies her basic attacks. So when you start off with Jinx, you start off with Pow Pow, who's the minigun, which is basically the faster attack speed item. And then the other one is Fishbones, which is the rocket launcher. And Switcheroo lets you switch between these two weapons for your basic attacks. So the one that you start off with is Pow Pow, the minigun. That's basic attacks grant additional attack speed for 2.5 seconds. This effect stacks up to 3 times for a total bonus of 50, 70, 90, 110, 130 percent attack speed. The stacks fall off one at a time and only benefit Jinx's first attack after switching to the rocket launcher. So that's going to be... so basically, when you're using the minigun, the more times you're attacking with the minigun, the faster your attack speed gets, which is pretty interesting effect there. It's almost like she's spooling up the minigun, but it's kind of cool. And then when you switch over to the rocket launcher, its basic attacks deal 110% damage and all nearby enemies. So basically you have a basic attack that is Tristana. I mean, it's basically like Tristana's ability where you get that splash damage onto enemy champions. The difference here with the rocket launcher is that you actually get... you gain 75, 100, 125, 150, 175 range, and it does drain mana to do basic attacks with the rocket launcher. But you get that extra range boost as well, which is really, really cool. This is an interesting ability. What do you think about this?
Any champion that basically changes their form is going to have, a good amount of strategic viability. And Jinx is certainly no exception. She has essentially 2 forms. One that is an attack speed form, which is going to be great for taking down towers, and also if she builds something like a Blade of the Ruined King or any on-hit style effect, she'll be fantastic for shredding down high HP targets, thanks to that unbelievably high amount of attack speed that she gets. I believe that is actually the biggest attack speed buff in the game at this moment.
It is. And, I mean, the funny thing is you were talking about Shred. She is probably one of the biggest tower bullies I've ever played with. I mean, just her ability to take a tower from 100% to 0 in just a few seconds with those stacks on the minigun is insane. It's an incredible attack speed buff.
She can shred people down with those on hits, or she can switch to her rockets and, chase down people who are with that bonus range. She gets the 10% AD and the splash, so it gives her, almost like a combination between like a Manamune and like a Roshan's Hurricane.
Yeah, a little bit, yeah. I mean, the way that you really do this with Jinx, I mean, with the amount of times that I played her, is like you said, I mean, you just shred them with the minigun, and when they start running, you switch to the rocket launcher, because you're getting that range boost that they really just don't expect. I mean, you don't expect somebody who has to get in close like that to suddenly have all that range. It's kind of the Tristana effect in that regard, but I love the ability to just switch between these two weapons. Keeps everybody on their toes. It's nice.
I mean, given the dominance of Zed in Season 3, we should know instinctively by now that 10% passive bonus damage to a champion is a big number.
Yep,
So,
absolutely. Next, we will move on real quickly here to her W, which is Zap. Jinx uses her Zapper, which is a shock pistol, and fires a blast that deals damage to the first enemy hit, slowing and revealing it. So, and the range on this blast is absolutely insane. I mean, it's got about, I measured it out, and it's actually just a little bit longer range than Caitlyn's Piltover Peacemaker. So if you think of it that way, it's a ridiculously long range ability, and that slow is nothing to slouch at.
yep, it definitely feels like, especially before they changed the ratios around and lowered the base damage but increased the scaling.
Oh my gosh, yes.
It really did feel like getting hit with a Nilly spear, but one that slowed you for 2 seconds.
Which, I mean, is just not fair. I mean, I'll be perfectly honest, it just really was not fair. I think it's still not fair.
I remember the first time I got hit with Zap, my jaw just dropped. I was like, why is half my health missing and I can't move? That seems unfair somehow. And it certainly was. So they definitely lowered the base damage significantly, and they increased the AD ratio a lot. So that was good, because now you have to make a choice between, those Blade of the Ruin King style on hit auto attack builds and these sort of AD caster builds like Graves and Sivir have, where you stack a lot of AD and hope that you land skill shots.
Right, exactly. So, I mean, Zap is a really great chasing tool, obviously, because of the slow. It's also a really great, I don't know if I'd really call it an escape tool, but it definitely puts the brakes on a jungler if you can hit him with Zap when he's coming out to gank you.
Oh, yeah. No, it's definitely great in scenarios where you're being chased by one person, because she does have to stop for a second to fire it. But if you're just being chased by one guy and stopping for a second isn't going to give the second guy the chance to actually catch you, it's definitely pretty good. That 2 seconds feels like a long time when you're chasing someone.
It is a long time, to be perfectly honest. I mean, 2 seconds is, in League of Legends, a lot can happen in 2 seconds, that's for sure. So that's Zap. We'll move right along to her next ability there, which is Flame Chompers. That is her E ability. Jinx throws out a line of snare grenades that explode after 5 seconds, lighting enemies on fire. Flame Chompers will bite enemy champions who walk over them, rooting them in place. So she tosses 3 of these little suckers that are basically like 3 Caitlyn Yordle snap traps there in a line. And if you step on one of them while they're chomping away, you get rooted up in place, and then after 5 seconds they blow up and deal magic damage to everything that's around them. This, I think, is what makes Jinx so powerful, is her crowd control. I mean, if she didn't have enough really decent attack abilities already, she has an insane amount of crowd control with these Flame Chompers. I mean, it's like throwing down 3 Caitlyn traps. It's insane.
Oh yeah, and because you're throwing down, the way that this ability actually plays out, just when you read this ability, you don't realize how terrifying it is to have 3 mines thrown behind you, and then your decision is fight Jinx head on or let Jinx beat on you while you're in a Flame Chomper.
Yeah, I mean, and it's like you're not going to really want to duel Jinx, because eventually, even a champion that can go toe-to-toe with her with attack speed, that minigun passive is going to stack her attack speed to the point where she just duels anyone. So, I mean, it's a lose-lose situation. If she's able to place these snare grenades behind you, it's really ridiculous. I'm just a big fan of any ADC that has a good amount of crowd control like this. And those Flame Chompers really put Jinx at a whole new level, in my opinion.
Oh yeah, absolutely. It is easily her class defining, or her champion defining ability.
That and the switcheroo thing, I think, but definitely the Flame Chompers is just my favorite, because I think a lot of people even forget that I have them. because I can't tell you how many times that I'll be in lane just last hitting, and then I just catch the other enemy AD carry not moving. I throw them behind him, and then suddenly they're like, "Oh wait, you have that?" And then I just kill them and run away laughing.
Also, much like even a Ziggs, it gives her a lot of jungle utility in terms of, like, let's say you catch someone out in the jungle and their team is, relatively close, maybe within like 2 to 3 seconds of actual game movement time. If you catch someone out, you throw those chompers down in the right spot, and the team is not going to be able to join the fight at all.
Right. It really zones out the enemy tanks if you can separate a squishy from their tank line with these things.
Yeah.
That just gives you a lot. It gives you a lot of really good separation there. It's awesome.
Right. She actually, in a lot of ways, kind of reminds me of Varys, but with more damage and less range.
Yeah, well, I mean, and that's the funny thing about Jinx is that she really combines a whole bunch of different champions, like little bits of everything here. Like these flame chompers really remind me of the Caitlyn, Yoral snap trap. There, you have the splash damage she gets off of her rocket, which is a lot like Tristana. And then of course her ultimate, which we'll get to in a second, which looks like a lot of other champions' ultimates too. So she looks like a really good mishmash of quite a few different champions here.
Yep.
But they all combine in this beautiful Jinx package. So we're going to move on to her ultimate here, which is the Super Mega Death Rocket, which is probably the greatest name for an ultimate ever, in my opinion. Super Mega Death Rocket. Jinx fires a super rocket across the map that gains damage as it travels. The rocket will explode upon colliding with an enemy champion, dealing damage to it and surrounding enemies based on their missing health. So we have another global ultimate.
Right.
And this one is basically an Ezreal ultimate that doesn't basically an Ezreal ultimate or a Draven ultimate that doesn't keep going once it hits. Once it hits, it blows up, and the farther it goes, the more damage it gains. And I love global ultimates. I'm going to be the king bastard of League of Legends Mountain and say that I love global ultimates on AD carries.
Yep, they are. You'll find that every AD carry with a global ultimate has been played at pro level.
Yep. And I don't think Jinx is going to be an exception to that rule. Mm-hmm. And it's definitely not probably the most. It's not the most exciting ability in the world, to be sure. You're not going to get some of the. You're not going to use Super Mega Death Rocket like you would an Ezreal ultimate. It's not one of those things that you're going to spam to hit minion waves. I don't even think Draven gets played anymore, but it's not going to be used that way either. I really use Super Mega Death Rocket more as a initiation, kind of like an Ash Arrow, even though you don't get the crowd control off of it. It's a big signal to the team that says, okay, go. You're throwing down this giant boom that hits everything in the area, causes a whole lot of damage there, and basically just softens up everybody for a team fight. So I use it really as an initiation tool more than anything else.
Yeah, I definitely think especially in solo queue, that's generally a good way to use an ult like that. Of course, it has its natural functionality of dealing extra damage based on their missing health. So it is really, I guess, designed as a global execute, and the plays that you can make from across the map are quite frankly hilarious.
Of course.
But being able to soften the enemy up and really, send a solid signal to your team that it's time to fully engage the fight. I think that a lot of times is even more valuable than, picking off somebody with 20 health that managed to flash out of the fight.
Right, exactly. So that's Jinx, and overall, I've got nothing bad to say about Jinx. She's, like I said, she's everything I wanted in an AD carry. If I get the chance to play Jinx, for the most part, I'm going to play her. She is a little bit weak to hyper carries. You don't really want to stack Jinx up against somebody like Vayne. Somebody like Kog'Maw can just rip through Jinx because of, or especially someone like Hogma or like Caitlyn, just with the range that they have can outclass Jinx sometimes.
Yeah, she's certainly not gonna win the poke war, and
No,
like the new Sivir absolutely will take her apart.
and does constantly, which is just infuriating to me.
And
But,
we can talk about Sivir next time because I've got lots to say
we
about
have
her.
to because she is just ridiculous right now. But yeah, so I mean, I'm not going to go out and say that Jinx is the best AD carry, but she's definitely my favorite to play right now. Like, if I'm just interested in having a fun game of League of Legends, I'm going to play Jinx, and I'm going to have a blast laughing and blowing stuff up.
Well, isn't that what it's all about, though?
Laughing and blowing stuff up?
Yeah.
Yeah, I'd say so.
Yeah.
It's why I play Ziggs.
I mean, Jinx, even after her nerfs, she's still... let's see. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. I'm not going to count all the way through, but she's definitely in the top, like, 25 champions win rate wise.
Yep.
So,
And Riot even said, with these nerfs, they weren't trying to. Their whole intention with Jinx was for her to be powerful. They weren't going to nerf her into the ground like they do with some of these champions after their release date. They just wanted to rein back her damage on Zap a bit and stuff like that. I mean, they really did design her to be on par with the other 80 carries that they put out. They really wanted to have a new option, I feel like. And she is definitely that.
Well, she is one of the only 3 AD carries right now that actually has a positive win ratio.
Yeah,
obviously Sivir, who is, based on her numbers, her ban rate, and her popularity, I would bet my firstborn child that she is going to get nerfed.
Oh, no doubt. I've played with her, and she has to get nerfed. I mean, she's a problem. I think we will go into her more in depth next week on this. But I just want to say right now, the new Sivir is a problem. Like, she is a straight up problem.
And I think part of her problem too is that her changes were subtle enough that people are losing to her really badly, but they don't know why, and there's no knee jerk reaction. Oh, like it was with Jinx. Like, oh my god, that's clearly overpowered. No, she's so well balanced that it's hard to point out one thing that's causing such a problem. But a 55, I'm looking right now on locally, and her win rate for this past week was 55.81%, which is absolutely busted. It's completely broken. They'll nerf a champion who's sitting on like 52, 53% a lot of the time. So, but yeah, there's no like one ability. Like when you get hit with, both, the forward and backward motion of her Q, that certainly sucks, but there's counterplay there. There's a lot of counterplay involved with Sivir, so it's going to be hard to nerf her, because what do you nerf?
I think you nerf Ricochet, to be perfectly honest.
Yeah.
That rework that they gave Ricochet is ridiculous. I mean, it was a cool ability when it did it once. But activating it for it to be a passive for a couple moments where every basic attack you throw out does that Ricochet, I think that's where her problem is in Ricochet.
Yeah, I mean, that certainly would be the one to go for, because it has the least amount of counterplay involved.
Well, you can't. I mean, how do you counterplay that? I mean,
yeah.
She turns it on and her next basic attacks are going to hit everybody.
I mean, I guess the counterplay is to just back off, but that's
stun her.
That's kind of annoying. Yeah, stun her. Yeah,
if you can get through the spell shield, stun her.
Exactly. I mean, maybe the spell shield costing 0 mana was a mistake. I don't know.
I don't know about that, because I mean, even though it's a powerful ability, that is a high skill cap ability. Because I mean, you really got to know exactly which ability that you want to counter with that spell shield, and you better have the reflexes. You better have the reflexes to use it too. Because I mean, even if you're a second late, I mean, there's no point to even having that ability in the first place. So, I don't know if spell shield costing 0 is the problem, because that skill is just so high skill cap anyway. But I definitely feel, having played with her a bunch and played against her a bunch, that the changes they made to Ricochet are just, I think that's where she has a problem now. I think we will get into way in depth into Sivir next week because she's busted.
Also, the other one is Draven, at least for this week.
Draven, really?
Yeah, actually, he's still doing fine as far as the solo queue is concerned. So
I haven't seen him at all. That's sad.
I don't know what his pick rate is. Let me see here.
It's just one guy.
It's one guy who plays nothing but
Draven
Draven.
100% of the time, and he's just won every game he's played this week.
I mean,
it's
it's a 9. It's basically a 10% pick rate, so it's up there.
It's not bad. Who would have thought it? Maybe we'll see the League of Dragon.
And very low bans too, so we might see League of Draven coming back.
Welcome to the League of Dragon. I really wanted to make that like my text message notification for a long time, but then I thought people would laugh at me.
Of course. Also, seeing Heimerdinger above 50% is blowing my mind right now.
Well, and I think we're going to have to talk about Heimerdinger. I mean, maybe we'll just do a rework patch shenanigans next week, because, I mean, Heimerdinger is pretty strong right now, too, with the changes they made to him. I actually saw Heimerdinger get banned, and it wasn't a troll ban. The guy was like, first ban, he banned Heimerdinger, and
Wow.
we're all like, why did you ban Heimerdinger? He's like, have you played against Heimerdinger? He's ridiculous. So, I mean, I believe it. It wasn't a troll ban. He really did not want to play against Heimerdinger.
Who knew?
Yeah, I know, right? Well, I mean, that's pretty much all I had to say about Jinx. I don't know if you had any final thoughts about Jinx or anything like that, Will.
No, I think she's in a pretty good place now. She's someone who is very strong. She has a lot of tools, but there's also a lot of counterplay. So she's just, I don't know, kudos to Riot. She's a really well-designed champion.
Yeah, I think that's what it comes down to. She's just a well-designed champion. Very happy with Jinx, and looking forward to the next champions Riot puts out if they're just as well-designed as she is. But, I mean, that's pretty much all we have for this week. Talked about the Season 4, talked about Jinx, and looks like that's pretty much all we had on our docket. Will, any final thoughts, closing remarks for this week?
Just generally good to be back in the podcast seat. Kind of hoping to really kind of network with some other podcasts, get them potentially on with us and us on with them, and so hopefully we'll get some good guest speakers in here pretty soon.
That would be awesome. I'm trying to get in touch with some people to see what they're up to here, and we'll see if we can maybe even bring on a third host. I don't know, but there's going to be a lot of cool stuff going on with the podcast now that we're back. We're all, of course, very excited to be back, very excited to be having this opportunity to record again and talk some more about this game. And our goal, if we can just run down this really quickly, I mean, our goal is definitely going to be putting out a podcast a week, and we're going to be making this a weekly deal here. Our website is still definitely up and running, and that's where we're going to be posting most of this. All of this is going to be self-hosted and all of that good stuff. And hopefully, with expansion, will come all kinds of goodies. And we're just really going to see where this thing takes us. And I mean, we take it seriously. We hope y'all will take it seriously with us and enjoy what we have to say there about League of Legends. So I think that's going to wrap it up for this week here. Just some quick contact stuff. As always, you can find us there at www.firstbloodpodcast.com. Our website is still up and operational, even though it hasn't had any new content recently. But now that we're back, of course, new content will be coming up there. And we've got some really exciting plans that we want to be doing in the future, involving shoutcasting, involving article writing, and we really want to just give you guys as much content as possible on the website there. So more to come on that in the future as we tinker with stuff and play with stuff here and decide what we want to do. You can follow us on Twitter at First Blood Team. That is our Twitter handle there. If you want to follow me specifically, I am Alec_NTG. That is my Twitter handle there. Will, do you have a Twitter handle?
No.
Get one.
Nope, I won't do it.
You're bad.
Nope,
We're bad at social media.
Yeah, I've never considered Twitter good social media.
You are bad. Let us all berate Will and shun him from Twitter. You can also find us there at Facebook. We have our First Blood Podcast Facebook page. Like us, be friends with us on Facebook. Share it with your friends and relatives. We'll be posting links on our Facebook wall, of course, to any new episodes that come out or any exciting pieces of news, tidbits we find here and there. We also do have a up and running YouTube channel now, and that is First Blood Podcast YouTube channel, where we will be posting not only episodes of the show, but once we start getting into some of our other plans, that's where we'll be posting as well on our YouTube channel. And then, of course, if you want to contact us, you want to leave us some feedback, ask us some questions, tell us how bad we are, tell us how much you need to kick off that guy Eat More Chicken because he has a horrible voice and his beard is obviously not fully developed, then send it there. Send all of your everything to firstbloodpodcast@gmail.com. We love feedback. I love to read emails from people, and I love to respond to emails from people, and I would love to read emails on the show too. So send us what you got, and we will definitely respond back as quickly as possible. But I think that's going to do it. So from me here at First Blood Podcast, from me, Eat More Chicken, from my co-host, Will Sinskar, thank you so very much for joining us this week, y'all, and we will see you next week on